What comes to mind when you think of shonen heroes? Luffy from One Piece maybe? Or Naruto from the Naruto series? Perhaps Ichigo from Bleach? Apart from being the most recognized shonen heroes in recent times, they have many character traits in common. For one, they're all teenage boys taking their first steps into adulthood. We can put this down to the demands of the genre and its target audience, who, like their heroes, are young adults and largely male. There's also the fact that each of these boys has some kind of incredible power. It sets them apart from others and makes them strong enough to take off on extraordinary journeys and tackle dangerous situations. It's thanks to their exploits that the word overpowered crops up everywhere on discussion forums. Shonen heroes are also a predictable lot, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Many of them start off weak, their powers are almost always inherited, and they come to own these powers only after going through extensive training and facing terrible hardships, even personal tragedy. This predictability makes us root for them that much harder, but every now and then there comes a hero who breaks away from the mold and does his own thing. Kageyama Shigeo, aka Mob of Mob Psycho 100 is the name that comes to mind. And that brings me to the subject of my video today, why Mob is an unconventional anime hero. But first, a recap of the anime and a short character study of its hero, and it goes without saying, a spoiler alert is now in effect.
僕は最低だ。
Mob Psycho 100 is the story of Mob, a 14-year-old student at Salt Middle School. His two defining features are his psychic abilities and his social awkwardness. On first impression, Mob is an average Joe, and this impression surprisingly doesn't change throughout the 2 seasons. It starts with his appearance, with his dark hair worn in a neat bowl cut and his blank, inexpressive eyes. Mob has the look of someone who doesn't like to stand out. This has a lot to do with the art style, which is unique and the first thing about the anime that really stands out. It looks simplistic but has deceptive depth. Mob's appearance is a perfect match for his personality. He's quiet, soft-spoken, and contemplative. He seems nervous around his peers, and it's hardly surprising that he has no friends in school. Despite his geeky appearance, he isn't terribly studious. He doesn't seem to have any interests either. When he's not in school, he's either at home or at his part-time job at the dubiously named Spirits and Such Consultation Office. He isn't any different at these places. He's a quiet presence at home, showing a certain amount of healthy fear for his strict but loving mother. The only time you see him show any kind of real emotion is in his interactions with his younger brother Ritsu. Mob's silent admiration for his brother, more popular and hence more normal sibling, is plain to see. At his workplace, Mob shows his naive and gullible side as he goes about performing exorcisms for his spiritually powerless boss Reagan, who pays him with meals and some loose change. To anyone with a half-rational mind, it's obvious that Reagan's far from the great psychic he claims to be. His cleverness, though, is nothing to sneeze at. Yet Mob does as Reagan tells him to, no questions asked, even when Reagan makes impossible and unreasonable demands of him. Mob's withdrawn personality is entirely a result of his psychic powers. He's an extremely powerful and talented esper. His one weakness is that his powers are linked to his emotions at a molecular level. Negative emotions are his trigger. He's at his strongest and therefore his most destructive when he gives in to anger, despair, fear, or sadness. What makes Mob different from most shonen heroes is that he doesn't revel in his powers and doesn't care for them that much. He strongly believes that his abilities, while not a curse, aren't a gift either, and they don't make him special. As a result, the thing he fears the most is giving in to his emotions and losing control of his powers. It's the reason he's trained himself to stay calm and not give in to provocation, even if it means suffering, humiliation, and being the butt of cruel jokes. For example, the girls in his school are in the habit of leaving love letters in his shoe closet as a dare. They know he's a soft target. Before he caught on, Mob believed the letters to be true, leaving him baffled, but also a little bit hopeful. Now that he knows better, he just takes the jokes in his stride. Mob's social awkwardness makes him relatable to his fans, something not all shonen heroes can pull off. He might be the hero of his story, but he's also like any one of us. Many of us can relate to being the uncool kid at school, the oddball, the outcast. He makes us empathize with him and understand him. At the same time, he demands our admiration with his special abilities, and we give it fully. Knowing he lacks confidence and yet is supremely powerful makes him both human and hero-like. Shonen shows thrive on such duality. In this aspect at least, Mob is similar to other protagonists. I'm sure we all agree that we like Luffy and Naruto a lot more because they're huge dorks in addition to being terrific heroes. While Mob is a shonen hero in many ways, he's also a different breed of hero. This might have something to do with the anime itself and its creator, who goes by the pseudonym One. The mangaka's works are known for their strong element of satire and parody, though not in an obvious Gintama kind of way. One Punch Man is the most famous of One's creations, named after a protagonist who downs enemies with a single punch, a departure from the beloved shonen heroes who goes beyond the limits of their strength, fortitude, and even humanity to bring down enemies 100 times tougher and stronger. Mob Psycho is more subtle in its satire, but there is plenty of it. Unlike other heroes who stumble onto their powers and take some time getting used to them, Mob is born strong. The power's already within him when the story begins. He knows how to wield it. It's a familiar power. And it's a great power too. So great that there's no reason for Mob to put himself through any harsh training to master it. Training arcs are the lifeblood of shonen anime, and Mob Psycho doesn't have any. Well, not in the obvious way at least. What you get instead is Mob joining the body improvement club at school and spending time with the big boys in muscle shirts pumping iron, doing squats, running 5 kilometers every morning, and passing out because he just can't keep up. There's no lofty ideal behind Mob's training. It's simply because he wants to build some serious muscles to impress his childhood friend Tsubomi-chan, on whom he's had the biggest crush for the longest time. While such a training arc definitely takes the piss out of traditional training arcs, it's in no way irrelevant to the story and to Mob. In fact, it says a lot about him and his character. Mob's involvement with the Body Improvement Club proves that he is, above all, a regular boy with all the preoccupations boys his age have. It's not about using his powers to do good, but about coming across as strong and mainly to get the girl of his dreams. On the other hand, his willingness to suffer extreme hardships to achieve his goal and to endure it even when he's making hardly any progress shows he is a hero after all. Just one with a different set of priorities. What makes a good shonen hero? While there are a lot of ingredients that go into it, character development is something people talk about a lot. It's the growth and progression a character shows through the course of a story. Naturally, there are some standard elements that act as catalysts for such development. Lonely and painful pasts, the will to succeed and follow one's dreams, tragedies such as the death of a parent, mentor or friend, and so on. While Mob Psycho might be just too short at just 2 seasons long so far to show much character development for its protagonist, there's a story arc in season 2 where Mob's character shows definite growth. It's a small change and yet quite profound, given the kind of character Mob is. Mob has always shrunk back from speaking his mind, even if he feels strongly about something. His usual attitude is to just shrug his feelings aside and bottle his feelings. For example, through most of the series, Reagan makes impossible demands on Mob's time, calling him at a moment's notice, telling him he probably had nothing better to do. Apart from a gentle reminder that Reagan shouldn't take him for granted, Mob shows inordinate patience towards his selfish boss. But things change when he gets another love letter in his shoe closet, this time from a young girl who happens to be a budding writer. Knowing it might be a joke, Mob still befriends Emmy, who turns out to be prickly, pessimistic, and easily influenced by her friends. After a few days of walking home together, she dumps Mob, telling him she wrote to him only as a dare. Soon after, Mob sees her with her friends, ripping her novel to pieces as they make fun of it. What comes next isn't something we expect of Mob. He admonishes Emmy's friends for making fun of a novel she put so much effort into, not stopping even when Emmy tells him to stay out of her business. What's even more out of character is when Mob readily reveals himself as an esper to put the torn novel back together. This is the first time we see Mob stand up for something without being cornered into it. It's an important landmark in his hero's journey, that his character undergoes such a transition, not through an earth-shattering experience, but because of an unlikely friendship, is what makes Mob different from the rest. We can say the same for the anime, which uses a mini arc irrelevant to the main story as the launchpad for such an important development. Mob's growth in this arc greatly influences the story later on though, when he finally makes Reagan realize that he won't play along with his demands anymore. At this point, I must clarify that while all of this makes Reagan seem like a horrible boss and a terrible character, he's actually anything but that. Apart from being a fan favorite, Reagan is funny, cool, and a fascinating character. He's truly Mob's mentor in all the ways that matter. And that's the next point I'll be making.
わかった。今度はマジで降参します。むしろ俺たちはバカ逃げろレイゲン
Given its satirical element, Mob Psycho gives the concept of mentorship, a staple of shonen anime, a twist. While Reagan is Mob's mentor, their relationship doesn't work in the way most mentor-student relationships in shonen anime do. When it comes to psychic powers, Reagan has nothing to teach Mob, for obvious reasons, but he's always there to guide the young Esper through some tough decisions, lift him up in his moments of weakness, and rescue him when he needs rescuing. It's amazing how he pulls this off with just his guile and cunning, but he does it admirably. This shows that while he might not have superpowers, he definitely isn't an ordinary human being. One of Reigen's biggest influences on Mob is in the way he keeps him sane and stops his destructive tendencies on the rare occasions the young boy crosses the limits of his endurance and unleashes his full powers. At that moment, when the countdown reaches the ominous figure of 100%, Mob is practically unstoppable. It happened during his battle with Ishiguro, the leader of Claw's 7th Division in Season 1. Torn between using his powers to save his brother and friends and running away, Mob's stressed to such an extent that his murderous intent reaches 100%. Just as he's about to explode and go on the attack, Reigen intercepts him and with just a touch, tells him it's okay to run away and leave it to the adults. It's a simple gesture that takes away all of Mob's stress and turns his negative thoughts into 100% gratitude towards his teacher. The chapter is aptly titled Shisho, which means leader or master. Reigen shows his guidance of Mob in such small but important ways. Despite his ulterior motives for having Mob work for him, you never get the feeling that he's exploiting the boy to cause harm. If something makes Mob uncomfortable, such as exercising a family of harmless spirits, Reigen never forces him to do it, even if it's bad for business. Reigen also seems to know Mob's emotional state at any given time, despite the latter's inability to express himself fully. This makes for a student-mentor bond that is just as fulfilling as that between, say, Naruto and Jiraiya. The same can be said for Mob's friends. Unlike a typical shonen hero who surrounds himself with powerful friends, allies, and a much-needed rival, the gang Mob runs with is a bit of a motley crowd. Mob doesn't have a rival, being as powerful as he is. Fellow Esper Hanazawa Teruki thought of himself as one but is now Mob's friend, having been solidly beaten by him in a test of strength. Then there are guys from the Body Improvement Club who are in the story not only to serve as Mob's exercise buddies, but to rescue him from dangerous situation when the need arises and generally help him grow. Reformed spirits and villains, former delinquents, would-be telepaths, and even an aspiring journalist make the rest of Mob's group of friends. In addition, he has followers by virtue of being the mysterious figurehead of a pseudo-religious cult, as well as the shadow leader of a powerful school gang, both without his consent. How many shonen heroes can boast of such an inner circle? Yet this doesn't make Mob a comic hero in any way. The zany characters and plots are never merely ornamentation, but integral to Mob's character in his story. That's not to say Mob's not a shonen hero in the true and traditional sense as well. He has the qualities that make him one: a strong sense of right and wrong, tolerance and mercy for his enemies, and of course, a great power. His other quirky qualities just add layers and depth to his character, making him a rare and special breed in the galaxy of shonen heroes. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. What are your thoughts on Mob as a modern-day shonen hero? I'd love to hear from you, so go ahead and leave a comment in the section below. Give this video a like if you would, and subscribe to ViniiTube Kai for more anime character studies and cool stuff like this. You can write in with video topic suggestions as well. I'll see you in the next video, so till then, check out Mob Psycho 100 if you haven't already.